today. So I think we're going to give Emily a good time. My favorite poem of Emily's, everybody has one, is I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? I like being nobody. It's been snowing here, and last night we had rain and ice, so we're really especially grateful that you were able to get here safely, find a place to park, and parking doesn't seem to have been a problem, except for some of these latecomers. Maybe that was for them. I don't want to take up much time with an opening kind of welcome, except to say welcome. These are wonderful people that you're going to get to be with, and you all are clearly wonderful people for all of us to get to be with. So please know that you're a gift to all 12 poets. We were talking today about the 12 poets of Christmas, and on the first poet of Christmas. So we started to try to sing. That didn't work out too well. But please know you're a gift to all of us. Poetry's sustaining. However, not many in our country get to have that experience of having it be sustaining. Uh, I believe that you all will tonight. Tonight, we dedicate our reading to the poet Robert Vandermolen, who left behind yesterday his wonderfully original poems. R.I.P. Rob. And this is for you, Rob. I could talk to you about why I feel each of these poets is a gift to my heart. However, after tonight, I have a hunch you'll know why. Each one has mastered this art and has their own singular vision. And that's pretty unusual. We've been working together for, well, I guess Beth goes back the farthest, 14 years. And everybody has come into being their own poet with their own vision, their own way of seeing, their own way of hearing, etc. Um, None is like anyone else, and you'll get to enjoy that tonight. So, since I'm an anti-critic, I will suggest to you no comparing. And this is not a dog show where we decide who's the best. Now, some operative necessities, please. Go to the chat window, click on it, and just type your name and where you're from. That's all where you're tuned in from. It's too easy to miss who's here, and we sure want to know who all is here. Keep yourselves muted throughout. There's nothing like a gigantic sneeze right when the poet says the baby was born. Hold all applause, please, until after the final reader, and then just explode off the screen. If you have to leave, you have to leave. We understand. There's no way to judge how long this will take, so don't worry. We understand if you have to leave. Don't hesitate to use the chat window throughout if there's things you want to say to any one of the poets. Each poet will read two original selections, and when we're done, there will be a time to visit, but most probably need to get to something. How I hope you savor this evening, each one of you. And now let's get started. Our first reader is Joy Gaines Friedler. Joy was born, raised, and now still lives in the Detroit area, Farmington Hills. She was a professional photographer. And in addition to being published in more than, ready for this, 100 literary magazines, she's the author of the following books that you can look forward to give yourselves for Christmas: Secular Audacity, Stone on Your Stone, Dutiful Heart, Like Vapor, and Capture Theory. Capture Theory was a finalist for the Forward Review Book Award. Joy's in demand as an extraordinary teacher and workshop leader. And this is something I think you'll have a good time noticing for each of these. Yes, they're all writing poems, and a lot of you, some of you have this experience as well. What else they do is, at least for me, utterly fascinating. Joy Friedler has written all those books, and at the same time, among her many workshops are those with prison inmates, parents of murdered children, asylum seekers, young adults at risk for suicide, and with women hiding from abuse. Welcome, Joy Gaines Friedler.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is such an exciting evening for all of us. I'm so lucky to know these people. I would say a zillion million wonderful things about Jack, but everyone else will say it so much better than me. So I am going to defer to them. I'm just so lucky to know these people. Yeah, you're going to hear tonight. It's really the gift that poetry has brought me is the community and the people that I've gotten to know over the years. It just is really extraordinary. I started working with Jack in landscapes. I would travel cross state for 6 years. I traveled cross state, and I stayed overnight at Colette's. I stayed with Barb Saunier. I stayed with Jack and Julie, and then it was too much. And thank goodness for Zoom, because I could resume this wonderful gift. I am going to read 2 poems tonight, and I'm going to dedicate these 2 poems to my sister and brother-in-law, who we're coming up on January 7th, which is the 1-year anniversary of the 200,000 people displaced by the fires in Southern California. Susan and Dennis lost their home in the Pacific Palisades fire, and they are still trying to put a new life together. So the first poem is kind of an acknowledgement of, life's most difficult challenges. And the second one is an antidote to that, I hope. William Carlos Williams is going to show up. And I just want to say that that's because writers of poetry read a lot of poetry. And we can't help but have these kind of continued conversations with the poems we read, and also the poets, of course. So he's going to show up in this one too. So I'm dedicating my reading to Susan and Dennis and the people of Southern California. This poem's called "They Sell Hazmat Suits at Home Depot." My sister will wear a white one today, white against the hot steam of blue sky as she visits the site of her incinerated life. I ask if she will seek to find something of the before. "Hell no," she says, "that life is over." She'll meet the agent of her future, measure what was in cubic inches and square footage. Maybe point out where neighbors once lived, defer to their loss in order not to feel her own. But that's just me. My sense of her loss, merely my imagination. The furniture was eating me, she seems to be saying, the way the poet William Carlos Williams did. Does wisdom come from anguish? Den's piano is gone, his shoes and shirts, every receipt, unwashed dish, bookmark, her mouth guard and glasses. A neighbor has hired a sniffing dog to find the urn that held her husband's ashes. She wants to schlep him around with her the rest of her life, my sardonic sister jokes. And I laugh because it's funny. I hope there will be something left in the remnants of furniture, something else to make them smile in all that ash. And as I said, my second poem, I hope, is an antidote. I believe it is. It's called Feeding the Birds. First, you must love wings, feathers, the cautious heart, the way what is fragile perches on the soul. And for sure, you must want to keep things alive, the way history gives wings to time. Watch, you'll see the patterns, how the mighty win their place, feed their young that knowledge. You'll see the blue jays bully cardinals, but the grackles arrive ready to fight. You will learn about exile and return, exile and return. Eventually, feeding will become an obsession. And because our souls are shaped like hands opening and closing on what we love, your garage will fill with suet sails, black oilers stored in metal containers, sugar water in the fridge. We are all small gods, our hearts fierce yet strangely weak. But here's the grip. When there is loss or sorrow, they feed you. Because when the rains come, even when the rains come, the birds feed, the birds sing. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Thank you for coming.
Oh, good night. Thanks so much, Joy. And again, don't hesitate to send those reactions up or whatever. We all want to make this a night for you to savor in any way that feels right for you. Our next poet is Mary McSchmidt. She lives in two places. She's either on the sailboat that she and her husband have, or back home overlooking Lake Michigan, up in the dunes. Mary has been a sports editor, and she's been the president of a Fortune 500 company. She's a dedicated advocate for the Great Lakes and for providing benches in the shade for seniors. Mary's published 3 books: Tiny Treasures, Uncharted Waters, and the latest, with her now late mother, Miracle Within Small Things, a mother and daughter's journey through loss and aging. Thank you, Mary, for reading for us. Here she is.
Thank you, Jack. Well, people warned me that it would be tough losing my mother. It is. She passed peacefully in July at the age of 98. With the support and compassion of the poets at Landscape, friends, and family, I began writing about grief. To my surprise, poems emerged that had nothing to do with mother, because, as you know, grief encompasses far more than death. As this poem unraveled on the page, I was reminded of 6 words. I am sorry, and I forgive you. The power of those 6 words. It is titled Forgiveness. He decided to build a moat around his life, ignoring my pleas for forgiveness for whatever I did to offend, refusing even a drawbridge for conversation, choosing to be estranged forever. And for years, I lay awake, my pillow a whipping post for my imperfect self, knowing I was unworthy of his love or any love until one night, long after he was gone, I chose to forgive him for not forgiving me. And that night, I dreamed us again side by side in the pink hue of dusk, listening to the birds gathering in the treetops, chattering and squabbling until that moment when that last trace of light disappeared and the silence of sleep blanketed the forest. And I did not awaken until dawn. The second poem is the last one Mother critiqued for me, for she too, as you know, was a published poet. It's titled Setting the Record Straight, and it was published this fall in the anthology of baseball poems titled The Songs of Summer. Now, it's a poem I would never have written without the suggestion of Joy, who you just heard from, a friendly nudge from Jeff, who follows me, and the support and encouragement of Jack. So here it is, Setting the Record Straight. What you may not know about Billy Martin is that in January of 1972, the same year he took the Detroit Tigers to their first American League East championship, he met a young woman sports editor on a Tiger preseason press tour. It was the first time a woman had crossed the threshold into a room of Tigers mingling with the press. And she was greeted with a silence so deafening. For decades, she lived in the shadow of that nightmare. It would not fade. What you may not know about Billy Martin is that unlike others in the room that night, he did not hit on her. Maybe somehow he knew that she, like he, had a tough job. Perhaps he saw her at the door, taking a deep breath, squaring her shoulders before stepping into the ring. Perhaps it touched in him a sense of chivalry, seated by the mother and grandmother who raised him after his father deserted them. This player turned manager, renowned for throwing punches, kicking dust, and waging war with his own front office, decided to share with this tenacious woman his untold backstory. She was 20, too young, too naive to know that what's told to the press is on the record unless it's not. Billy Martin never said it was not. Fearing his candid details too personal to publish, she decided not to write the article. Only later, when Billy Martin told his story to a male reporter and it appeared in Sports Illustrated, did she realize he had been opening a door for her into the major league of sports reporting. What you may not know about Billy Martin is that on learning she'd never been to Tiger Stadium, he invited her to a game, suggested she join the team in the dugout for pregame batting practice. When she arrived that mid-August afternoon, the Tigers, after riding high in July, were in a slump so long and ugly, some were calling it fatal. What you may not know about Billy Martin is that while the players were like brothers to him, he talked with them, believed in them, fought for them. There was nothing he could do to get them through a slump, but plan more practices, say little, support their superstitions. If I play well one night, I'll wear the same socks the next. I'm wearing too many clean socks. Ike Brown, pinch hitter, infielder. It's hard to correct things under pressure, so I sing. I entertain the team with my great wit, and I do a lot of praying. Norm Cash, first baseman. I want to win so badly I'm swinging at bad pitches. Ed Brinkman, shortstop. I'm not superstitious, but the rosin bag is always in the exact same spot, just right of the pitcher's mound. Joe Coleman, pitcher. I used to touch third base on my way out to center field, but I kept tripping over the bag, so I quit. Mickey Stanley, center fielder. What you may not know about Billy Martin is that when the woman in the dugout suggested he sign for her a practice ball to bring them luck, he borrowed her pen, signed the ball, then tossed both ball and pen to the players nearby. The remainder of that championship year is Tiger history. Ask any fan. I wrote this poem dedicated it to Harry Stapler, the former publisher of the East Lansing Town Courier, and the first of many mentors in my life, including Jack and the fellow poets at Landscape. Thank you, thank you.
Among the many things that I'm sure you already heard after just two poets is how wonderfully different their visions are, how brave they are, and you can hear the rhythms. You know, if you don't want to hear the words, just listen to them sing. These people can really, really sing. They know the music of language. And you can feel how when they pause, there's just Mary did it, Joy did it. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Our next reader is Jeff Monroe. And Jeff is the editor of the Reformed Journal and the author of two widely successful books. One, Reading Buechner, and two, Telling Stories in the Dark, Finding Healing and Hope in Sharing Our Sadness, Grief, Trauma, and Pain. When unable to fall asleep, Jeff goes through every World Series matchup. Ask him any year, and he'll tell you who played. Here's Jeff Monroe.
Thanks, Jack, and thanks, Mary, for that poem about the Tigers. They made the playoffs in 1972, but they didn't make the World Series. They were defeated in the fifth game of a best of five series by the Oakland A's, who went on to win the World Series that year over the Cincinnati Reds. Just proving I can do it, Jack. Okay, so I'm going to read, like everybody else, I'm going to read two poems. The first, I missed the reading last year. We were traveling. So this is a poem I was going to read last year, but you're going to get last year's poem this year. It's called Murmuration. On a sullen December afternoon, I turn a corner into a Hitchcock movie. 500 starlings staring at me. Not a murder of crows, but I fear for a moment a homicide of starlings. Yet they part before me like I'm Moses, or at least Charlton Heston. I've come in peace. They let me pass. I move ahead after a pause, then look back and see them coalesce again into one black mass, pulsing, having the same mind, that unfurls like a flag or waves like a wave, whipping and wilting, skittish sky dancers who treat the earth like a trampoline. I'm not sure of the physics or metaphysics, but in that moment, I see clearly. They survive because they have each other. And the second poem is called Venum Bonum, a Renaissance polyphony. I can't even say this word. I've got it in my title. Good wine Orlando de Lassus wrote in the 1580s gladdens the heart, using words borrowed from Psalm 104. And who but the most hardened and cynical can doubt the inspired truth of those words? De Lassus rhymes laetificat, which means gladdens, with rectificat, which means rectifies. To say good wine rectifies the body, anticipating the effects of antioxidants on cholesterol about 500 years before scientists discovered it. The man was a seer. But then, perhaps full of himself, or more likely, full of good wine, De Lassus says good wine, taken simply, makes an old man wonderfully prompt. Regrettably, this has not been my experience. Sensing the need to put the cork back in the bottle, De Lassus reminds us that Christ made wine from water, wine which does not fail and satisfies those who drink it. A fact I wish Protestant churches would remember when they serve tepid grape juice for communion, squeezing the drama from the sacrament and testifying that they are guided more by the Women's Christian Temperance Union than the pages of Holy Writ. The WCTU chose the simple over the complex, reasoning if drunkenness is bad, then taking a drink must be also. Nonsense, says De Lassus. Marvel daily that Jesus made good wine. Call upon Christ and drink joyfully. De Lassus saves one more surprise for the end, using fiat instead of amen. Subtle, but important. Let it be instead of so be it. Let it be, he says so many times that the fiats bump and clank like glasses on a table. Once again, I nod in agreement. Sure, sometimes I might let out an amen after an initial restorative and bracing sip. But after a glass of good wine, I'm ready to say, let it be to anyone and everyone. Let it be, Women's Christian Temperance Union. Let it be, upright and uptight elders and pastors. Let it be, slippers and slurpers, sippers and slurpers, guzzlers and gulpers. Let it be, weak and weary and wounded. This good wine is for you. Drink joyfully.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Oh, it's just wonderful to hear those poems. They're just the thing that's happened with our group is that there's it's gone from being workshops where you critique a poem to being a salon where we talk about all the subtleties and implications that these people work with. It's quite, you can hear them. You heard Jeff's marvelous use of alliteration without making it, look at me, I can use alliteration. There's none of that kind of thing going on, no self-absorption. I'm just lucky. Our next poet is Robbie Hart. Robbie came all the way here to read tonight through all this weather from the Berkshires, where she lives. In addition to composing poetry, she's the kind of poetry that actually was selected for a highly competitive conference. Some of you might know the poet James Cruz, and he picked Robbie. In addition to her poetry, she writes a weekly business profile in the Berkshire Edge newspaper. It's a publication with 125,000 readers. Robbie writes features as well for several other magazines in the Berkshires. She spent the last summer and the fall, replacing invasive plants and perennials in order to make husband Bob's and her guest house, named Willow, more welcoming for the families that they provide with a respite from traumatic circumstances. It's well, mind-blowing to me what these people do and then write these remarkable poems. And here's Robbie and her husband taking care of people whose children are desperately ill. So here's Robbie.
Thank you. The first poem I'm reading is about work. I attended a workshop at the American Mural Project, which is near me, and a tribute to workers across America. And the assignment was to write about a past job. So some of you may know that I grew up in Holland, and I would go every summer out to Queens, New York. I did that for about 6 years, I think, in high school and college, and worked at a church there in Astoria, and then would come back too late to get a regular summer job. So I worked at the receiving department at H.J. Heinz. And this was where the cucumbers came in. So this is Receiving Department, H.J. Heinz, Holland, Michigan. The only sure thing about second shift was the time you punched in. The flesh-colored card stamped 3 p.m. in faint blue ink with a loud snap, followed by the line workers taking their stations, narrow metal chutes spaced 3 feet apart along the harvest sorter, each shake of the machine's hips dropping a flurry of fresh cukes into the metal buckets below, sorted according to grade and placed on a scuffed square scale, while the workers scribbled down weights used later to determine the value of the load. None of the workers spoke English, a reality made more challenging because I chose German over Spanish for my high school language. The farmers, Larry Cook, Bob Eilers, Jerry Johnson, stayed outside to hoist their trucks, sending thousands of green torpedoes scudding onto the conveyor. When the load was finished, they'd signal for me to dart out from my dirty desk, scoop up the half-size sheets with columns of weights, take them back to the clunky, outdated adding machine, and calculate the average for each grade while the farmers watched over my shoulder, some nights beaming, others offering reluctant explanations. Lost 2 workers this week. Hardly a drop of rain this month. Equipment still waiting for repairs. Sometimes they'd flirt or joke in their mild Midwestern way. When the machines broke down, we all got a break, the only ones I can recall. Welcomed, but not without a later price to pay. Food appeared from metal boxes, paper bags, back pockets, generously shared, accepted without scrutiny. If it was a long break, they could last for hours. We'd head outside, lean against the 18-wheeler, look up at the stars, the smell of farm soil mixing with the wafting vinegar coming from the factory next door. Sometimes someone would take the dusty transistor radio from the office window and turn up a tune, maybe even dance. Eventually, in the middle of the night or even wee hours before dawn, we'd return to our roles, finish the shift, and finally head home. I'd unlock my bike, ride 17th to Central for the streetlights, then lock the back door, turn out the stove light, and close my parents' bedroom door, a sign I got home safely. Of all the faces on that sorting line, I remember only one, Ernesto Cantu, who invited me every Friday to the Crazy Horse for a drink. I went the last night and naively ordered whiskey. The rest remain a mystery still, forgotten the way you forget people riding beside you on a subway car, unless you look them in the eye, exchange a greeting, bother to learn their language, or ask about their life. And the second poem is called Grace. We now live in the Berkshires and in a very tiny village of about 179, and we attend a church with about 12 people. But it's come to mean quite a bit to us, and especially, I think, during these times that are giving me a lot of questions along with the rest of us. So this is called Grace. It came on an ordinary Sunday, late March, the ground still frozen, the sky locked in gray fists, reflecting our growing anxiety and fear. We entered late as usual, swelling the week's attendance to 12 motley disciples waiting for inspiration. Art was seated at the piano, looking more tired than normal, a full beard emerging since the last time we met, signs of living on the land becoming more visible as spring refused to come. Ned was back from heart surgery, flanked by sons and daughters from afar, signaling the gravity of the scare. Ramona had survived another round of viruses with the 3-year-olds at the local preschool. The first message came during the joys and concerns. Anita, holding back tears, shared that Calamity Jane, their cow, had stepped on a rubber dog cone. Hoof stuck and pregnant, she bore the pain as it swelled and abscessed each day, no way to sedate her to remove it without harming the calf. But by some miracle, the hoof trimmer offered his machinery, and through another miracle, Calamity Jane walked willingly up the ramp and placed herself down when he came, eyes closed, instincts trusting the clamps and instruments, her familiar herd of humans and their comforting voices, and was freed. The sermon time traveled to the temptations of Christ in the wilderness, fitting for mid-Lent and the world with its glaring reminders of the allure of power and greed, the desperation of human needs. Tell these stones to become loaves of bread, Robert read, and all this I will give you if you bow down and worship me. We drew our own lines to the strange realities of our daily news. We all wrestle with temptations, but will we be able to respond from that place deep inside us where love is greater than fear and survival, he asked. Then he held up his draft, a half-empty page, and said, and here I stopped, unable to figure out what to say next. Sitting down, he let us join him in the wrestling. Then Art bowed his head lower and started to play a cowboy song he wrote, another miracle, his spirit singing out from his own desert place, the humble humanity of us all tucked together in an offering of love, a prayer for hope. Thank you. And thank you, Jack, for organizing, and Julie for all the logistical nightmares you've gone through.
Oh, thank you. Oh, Robbie. Isn't it something? She makes it look easy. That's another thing that's so striking about these poets. Make it look easy. Think of all the things that Robbie could have said and didn't, because she trusts our ears and our hearts to feel them, and just makes it look easy. Anybody could do it. Oh, my goodness. Speaking of anybody could do it, and Julie will be angry with me, but she made this sweater. And she told me not to tell you that. But I'm going to tell you that. She made this sweater. Peg Padnos grew up in New York City. She's a graduate, really, of Harvard, but those schools during that time were all mixing and matching, it seemed, with each other. Peg loves New York. What she's doing here, I have no idea. I keep trying to figure that out, because all she talks to me about, at least, is New York. She goes there whenever she can and stays in her and her husband's apartment. Peg's now retired from her life as an exceptional nurse. She's also exceptionally literate. I have a hunch she can do the New York Times in about 12 minutes. She skips Monday and Tuesday. I mean, that's just, too easy. Too easy. Peg studies poetry writing, time and time again. She drives us crazy because we keep saying, Peg, you're there, you're there. But of course, you never know you're there. In fact, if we go back to Robbie, what's so hilarious about Robbie is that she will send us her poem about, they all want to, we get the poems about 5 days before we get together on Zoom. And Robbie's will come in, and then Robbie's will come in again, and then Robbie's will come in again, and she's changed the from 12 times in that period at least. But we work it through. We get there, and you can tell it's a beautiful poem from Robbie. And now the same from Peg, who goes to writing conferences with teachers all across this country. She just can't stop learning. Here's Peg Padman. You're muted.
Yeah, I got
There
it.
you go.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you, Jack. And I'm in New York now, so I'm in really a happy place. I can't help myself. My husband, in our early marriage years, we lived in New York City, and our daughter was born in New York. So that's good. And we had 2 more kids. So we have 4 kids, and we always hoped we would get back when we got older and were retiring and sometime get a little place. So we have that. And I thank my wonderful husband who helped me set myself up for this reading. And I appreciate Jack's notice about my love of the New York Times crossword. I don't do Wednesdays either, because well, Saturday's really the one. That takes a little time. But anyway, I appreciate that Jack mentioned my love of nursing. I don't know how exceptional I was, but I know I loved being a registered nurse and working with families of premature infants, especially when they were coming home from the NICU. And I did come to nursing I was very late to poetry because I was very late to nursing, and nursing led me into poetry. And on my journey to becoming an RN in middle age, I had to take various science prerequisites. Fortunately, I had Hope College. I loved my Hope College experiences. I have loved Holland too, just so you know. Even though I love New York City, I love Holland because I learned to live in a beautiful area. I learned about farming and plants and gardening. And I think it's important for city people, the East Coast elites, to have that experience of living in the Midwest. I think it's a wonderful experience. I don't regret it for a minute. Anyway, on my journey, I had to take these prerequisites, including basic chem. The baby chemistry, but it was for me, it was hard. And there was one lesson I carried away from chemistry class. Doc Williams at Hope College was the professor, and I mention his name because some of you might remember him. At any rate, he told us that the more beautiful the sunset, the dirtier the air. And so this is a poem about that particular wisdom, that bit of wisdom that I learned. I've titled it Mirage. So, Mirage. Sunset, say your truths. You stand between what's sacred and secular, what's masterpiece and wreck, slipped from the disappearing day, modeled like the stages of a bruise. Sunset, gloam the recesses of between murk and shadow, edge and fall. Dusk through diffusions of atmosphere, eventide your stained glass air, vesper barber's adagio for strings, grief's indwelling loss, foreboding, doom. Settle your chroma into streaks, crimson, claret, vermilion. Press your clots of boot-stomped fruit. Savor your twilight wine. Admit your media, smoke and ash, aerosol and gas, Debris from incinerated trees and rooms and people and their pets. Confess your beauty born from pour of sorrow, bright work of calamities. Remind us of Rembrandt mixing his paints with vinegar and lead and the heat of horse manure, or carboniferous funk masked by fragrant oils and turpentines. Tell us of soldiers writing letters from their trench, extolling dusted rays and golden light as if there were nothing else to see. And so the second thing, it's another poem of address. And I'm writing a little poem to my grandmother's fruitcake, asking it to reveal secrets she never disclosed about her early life in Jamaica, the reason she left home at age 25, the mystery surrounding her first husband, and her settling down with Grandpa Cyril for the next 50 years. So here goes fruitcake. A fruitcake, decant her truths, retrace her roots, make like a heart and beat, love the citron, dub the currants, pulse her cherries to jammy consummation, doused and doused again. Release the silences basking in their crock, tot of brandy, tot of rum, splash of tawny port. The search for exculpation after expulsion from an island paradise, shameful secrets soaked, cloaked in afternoon rituals of stirring and turning and inspiring the heady vapors of her sauce. Don't forget now and then the furtive sip. I bet it tasted warm, that thimble's nip. Tot of brandy, tot of rum, splash of tawny port. I give almost anything to trip with her, trawl her recipes, stitch together a semblance of what was. Almost anything to be the kitchen poet at her side, recording how she left at 25, what he was like, the husband who died before she married Gramp. How she, an aspiring teacher, evolved to cook and laundress, lady's maid. Born with a call, blessed she was with witchy sight. So fruitcake. Please remember the swinging bridge she crossed one foggy day, how she knew, just knew, her companion was a ghost. Draw from me her hand, kneading lemons to loosen up the juice, zesting them until the batter sang its song. Recount the cups of mortared almonds and pithed oranges. Decipher the glyphs of lessons hidden in the mash, those hush-hush Phillips of her culinary art. How she creamed butter to velvet, burnt cane sugar to the perfect shade of brown. How she'd spill her hopes dashed with cinnamon and clove and nutmeg love. So after her loaves were baked, she disclosed those other secrets drowned. Tot of brandy, tot of rum, splash of tawny port. Then the shroud of bright white cloth over the cake, laid to rest in a tightly lidded tin.
Thank you, Peg.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm often asked if I miss teaching after I retired from teaching in the college all those years. And sometimes I say, don't you miss your students? And I say, well, I miss the students all the time. They leave. They're always leaving. So of course I miss the students. But do I miss teaching? No. And this is why, of course. I'd never taught adults before. Adults have lives. That's one of the big differences. You all have lives. And that's a big difference from reading the 114th poem about how boring it was in the dorm that weekend. Coming up next is Jim Alice. Jim Alice is a graduate of Dartmouth. He taught public school. He earned his PhD in philosophy, and until retiring, he taught college philosophy. He has also been a Taekwondo instructor. These people are incredible. And now he's a teacher and a placement director at the Muskegon, Michigan prison. He spends much time helping those working their way through traumatic circumstances. I always remember the story of Jim's, I think it was, we'll say it was his first day at the prison. And the inmate came up to him and looked him in the eye and said, "Did you ever make a mistake?" Jim loves gardening and his outdoor train display. Here's Jim Alice. You're muted, Jim. You're muted. There you go.
Thank you, Jack. And thank you for your presence in my life for all these great many years. I don't know where I'd be without you. Thanks to Julie for putting up with this technological dinosaur in getting set for this evening. I was a relative latecomer to landscapes, and I just want to thank all the people in landscapes for their welcome, for their graciousness, for their encouragement in the writing of poetry. Jack sometimes refers to me as a recovering philosopher, and entering into this world of poetry has been wonderful, but sometimes intimidating. And I'm just very appreciative of the welcoming that the people in landscapes have given me. As Jack mentioned, I work in the prisons quite a bit, and while the work is wonderful, sometimes it's a little bit like going into a black hole. And so I have to figure out ways to try to climb out of the black hole. And one of the ways I do that is to pay attention to various aspects of the natural world. And so over the last month, I've written these two scribbles about things in the natural world. The browns of November. As daylight shortens, the winds sharpen, the temperature drops, the yellowed leaves of the beeches and oaks turn brown, at least a dozen different shades. With the increasingly low-angled light, with the greens, oranges, reds receded, the browns now get their turn, give off mixtures of light and shadow, offer a previously unseen richness, fullness of color and texture, before the winter storms blow the leaves to the ground. Over the summer, the kitchen and living room windows were washed. The year's dirt, grime, and bugs squirted away, revealing a brighter, greener backyard. Since then, between the glass and screen, a delicate web has grown, not the usual spider's work, but a close-knit mesh, like a finely woven blanket with the thinnest of white thread, a fly or two resting on top. Here in the late fall, as the afternoon sun slants through the trees and windows, as the evening breeze rustles the remaining leaves, the web bobs up and down in a gentle wave-like motion, giving off undulating patterns of light and shadow. As the wind picks up, enough finally to blow the chairs along the deck, the web, buffeted fiercely, holds fast. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim. One of the things with the college students was often teaching them to see, which they thought was pretty funny. And I'd take them out and, what do you see? That Jim's such a good example of that, because so many of the younger students would come back and say, well, I saw leaves. What do you think I saw? And of course, Jim shows what really seeing is. Most of the time, we just kind of look or notice. He could see. That man can see. Our next poet's Beth McBride. She lives in northern Michigan, looks out her window at the bay there outside Petoskey, between Petoskey and Charlevoix. Faces those sunsets over the water and all that dirty air that Don Williams has ruined my life with, but I don't have much left. Beth has been part of this group for 14 years. And more importantly, she was our daughter's first babysitter. Her chapbook, Most Beautiful, was published by the Poetry Box. The collection was supported by an artistry residency from the Glen Arbor Arts Center. And it focuses on her experience of the Sleeping Bear Dunes area. Beth's a fellow of the National Writing Project and an affiliate of Amherst Writers and Artists. Here's Beth McBride.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Get that out of the way. I want to thank you for years of inspiration, even though I must be a very slow learner to take 14 years. And encouragement, lots of encouragement over the years. What I love about poetry is the way that it expands within the relationship between the words and the reader. That allowance for interpretation provides for a sense of ownership and personalization for the reader. And it leaves room for the words to become something for each one of us, owned by all of us. And what we all have here, I have been told, in all that looking around, is that I have a certain degree of curiosity, which may demonstrate itself because living where we do, which is between Petoskey and Charlevoix area, I came upon some interesting information about Michigan's first nuclear power plant this past summer. And that first power plant, and at the time when it did close down, it was Michigan's first and longest running power plant, was called the Big Rock Nuclear Power Plant, and it's just outside of Charlevoix. So this poem is called Beneath the Big Rock Nuclear Reactor. It was so enormously quiet, he said, the surprise in his voice still possessing a reverie after so many years since the plant closed. We stood in the street between booths at a craft show. He fingered the polished stones he'd brought to sell. After a lifetime he'd built as a carpenter, husband, and father on Michigan's shore. Yet that pure stillness stood out in his memory. Such wonders seldom afforded a man. But he had descended 5 stories in bedrock to build the scaffolding others would use to dismantle the Big Rock reactor above. His grandchildren suddenly made their arrival with ice cream and trinkets and hugs all around. Still, he tried to recount the great depth of that silence, that filled the vast darkness he'd found far below. Now he lives near the site, gathers fossils as treasures, remembering meeting life where there seemed none. I so appreciated being a part of his expression of wonder. Poetry is like that. It lets us say things that are bigger than any words can say. When we were young, my sisters and I, my parents, lived for a while in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Really the first home that I remember. And this poem is called The Cookie Jar. Philadelphia Pickling Company. The steps were frightening for a 3-year-old. Open on one side with no rail. But since I'd never been down there before, or seen the dark of any basement, let alone touched a fieldstone wall, grasping at each rounded stone, I stepped, then sat, then slowly slid, step by step, down to the last, where my father kindly waited for me to reach the cobbled floor. I looked around, now filled with wonder at the fortress beneath our home. Evidence of lives before ours, first known touch of history. There was an awe in my father's eyes as we discovered wooden shelves, wrought iron tools, and thick glass jars awaiting harvest long since past. We walked out through a Dutch half door onto a hillside clothed in light. And somehow a stoneware crock appeared after that expedition and became our cookie jar, whose chipped clay lid could call a distant child or dog to come and reach or whine and beg for oatmeal raisin, molasses, or sweet sugar cookies for so many years to come. We never went down there again. But I wonder if the thrill of that first great exploration leads my footsteps still. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Mhm.
Isn't that lovely? Oh my goodness. Kathleen Markland grew up in the inner city of Chicago, the eldest of 9, in what was it, Kathleen? About 3 rooms? In addition to her poetry, Kathleen's an accomplished and well-recognized painter, and she was presented with the Lifetime Achievement and Contribution to the Arts Award by the Oxbow School of the Arts of the Art Institute of Chicago. Kathleen has published 2 books, Hearts in Transit, and the other one, A Pen, a Brush, a Book. Kathleen?
Oh, unmute, honey.
I'd just like to say thank you to Jack and Julie for this wonderful opportunity for us all to share our poems, and to the group that has accepted me as a poet. So thank you. The poems I've chosen to read today were recently brought to my attention that they are as relevant now as they were 50 years ago when I wrote them. so they are from Hearts in Transit. Thanksgiving, 1976. Pilgrims celebrated, meagerly I'm told, the first Thanksgiving in days of old, taught by Indians how to farm, welcomed in an alien land. Pursuing dreams that were born afar, a goal, a vision they did possess, freedom and equality, America was the place to be. Today, this land is not the same, controlled by a few with name and fame, gleaning from the worker's fate, food upon their table grate. Once trusting Indians are met with hate. Giving thanks this day for bread, migrant workers bow their heads. Pilgrims in their world anew live so far apart, hoping someday to be part of its society in a world truly free. Not a very different goal than had the Pilgrims long ago. And this one is time. We need time to be alone, time to let our minds run free, to taste the clouds and smell the earth, time to hear the sounds of life, to feel the concussion of changing winds, to wake at dawn, to be a part of the stillness, to walk barefoot and feel the raw earth, to witness dawn as she breathes away the solid night, splashing color, creating depth and space. We need time to dream, to pretend, to think, to pray, to sing, undisturbed without disturbing.
Thank you, Kathleen. G.F. Corrick is a semi-retired utility infielder who is on a lifelong search to find the one word that is worth 1,000 pictures. He's published a collection of his own poems, and he's assembling a new collection, and we hope it's going to be available sometime in the next year. He's also edited 2 anthologies, the most recent titled Busy Griefs, Raw Towns. And that anthology is a fundraising effort that GF did himself. It's a fundraising effort for those living in war-ravaged Ukraine. Here's GF.
Okay. Hello. So I'm unmuted now, I hope.
Yep.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm kind of the stray dog of this group. And I come in every month when we have our gathering. And I always feel welcome. They always find a spot for me by the fireplace. So I'm comfortable and happy. So I thank everyone. I thank Jack and Julie for putting up with me all these years. I have 2 poems, like everyone else. The first one's called A Hymn for Walking. It begins with maybe. It begins with a whistle. It begins with Earl Grey or English breakfast. It begins with both hands wrapped around a mug. It begins with grape nuts or steel-cut oatmeal. It begins with just you and this dog. You walk each other through the seasons. You walk the days you follow footprints. You walk the days you need to make footprints. You walk the days careful so as not to disturb the life huddled beneath the leaves. You walk to the dawn chorus of hermit thrush and song sparrow, of ruddering blackbird and northern flicker, of killdeer and mourning dove. You walk below drifting crowds. I'm sorry. You walk below
Julie?
drifting clouds, those new and the ones you've seen before. There are moments, pardon me? There are moments when you stop mid-walk and cock your head to hear what life has to tell you. Late in the day, when you are home, when the sun walks into the room, when it rests its head next to yours on the couch, you lean back and fall into a dream as the subtle rhythm of a spinning wheel turns moment to moment into poetry. Sorry about the fumbling on my part. The second one, I've always hated the expression, I don't see color. Because every time someone says it, of course they do. And of course we all do. And there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, that's what this poem is about. It's called The Randomness of Perfection. I see color because I have to. Because it is the world. It is what I live and breathe. It is the opposite of empty. I see color through a blinking lens, as far as my eyes can reach from the caverns set deep inside them. I see color of faces, of eyes, of hair. I see the color of a walk, a dance, a sidelong glance, a smile, a teardrop. I see the color of words, the color of songs, the color of wishes and prayers. I see the warp and weft of the streets. I see the color of shoes, the booted footsteps where death walks, where fire shoots from the mouths of ghosts. I see reflections in recycled cans, hear the sound of prayers rustling in embers. The night is vermilion at the edges, cobalt at the center, and all the faces are reflected in starlight. I see traffic lights that signal nothing, stop signs painted black, the dark wash of condemnation in vaguely lit cities. I see faces in the windows, the color of Lake Michigan, the color of a new car, the color of a loved morning. I see lines in the faces of slender valleys, small rivers with voices along the crest, an army of eyes coming into view. Do they see the colors I see? I see the shapes on the surface, what wriggles below the surface, the stones asleep on the horizon, the sand beneath the stones, the secrets hidden in each grain, the last dream of a dragonfly, the first taste of life of a spider. I see the randomness of perfection, the movement of human awareness, the starving eyes waiting to witness the world. I want to hold the faces I see, hold them with my eyes and tell them I am sorry that I don't see better. I see the color of want, of give and take, of take back and can't and no, of no turning around and no turning back, of no deposit and no return. I see the color of whitewash, a history the color of cherries, the copper pennants, the dog-eared hymns rewritten in disappearing ink. I see color. I want to see it. I want Crayola, the big box, a Pollock, not yet dry. I want a hurricane of shattered rainbows, a kaleidoscope of infinite pieces. I want to see it because it is the world, because it is what I live and breathe, because it is the opposite of empty, because, like love, it is random and perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, GF. Always. Marianne Sundquist lives in Santa Fe. She's a master chef. She's highly requested for events ranging from a distinguished dinner for 200 at the opening of the new Santa Fe, New Mexico Art Museum to a full dinner held in a cave to Robert Redford's birthday. Marianne writes a weekly column and has her own company, Stokely, Stokli, Stokely. I recommend Stokely, Stokely.com, because she sells products only from Santa Fe. And you can get things from Marianne that you can't get around here to add to your dinner delight. She's married to an artist. She loves tennis. And her manuscript, she has a manuscript, was recently awarded second place out of several hundred manuscripts submitted. And that's one of those things in those of us who live with poems. That's one of the great joys, to be that high, picked runner up. But that means only the first place is going to get published. So here you celebrate and your heart breaks at the same time. Here is Marianne Sundquist.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Julie, for helping arrange all of this. Thank you, Landscapes, for being my poetry family. I'm going to read two poems. The first is called Loneliness is a Spider. Loneliness is a spider. I saw her this morning, walking by the wood pile on my way to heat water for tea. She was doing her work in the middle of the air with the kind of purpose I dream of, like a spool of yarn finding its color, gold and pink meeting the loom, weaving a tale where too many times I have been the teller. There is poison, and there are teeth, an unknowing victim. Maybe it's the mouse. Maybe it's the lady walking her dog. The point is, nobody knows who is just about to get it, when the whole time, in the whole mouth, there is not a single drop of venom. When the whole time we could be bowing to the precision of the body, how it takes an arrow, to the smell of pinyon wood damp on the pile, how memories wash through hydrothermal veins until emeralds are born. From mother to child to child to child, every child royal. Blood flows the same way as the river, yet we whisper, be careful. When we could be lighting candles at the wonder, how flames shoot out, hearts beating at every age, in every direction. And really, we could be saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are welcome, all of us. We are the same as the eight-legged spider waiting to come inside. The same as the bird of paradise, black and blue, dancing, the whole time electric, the whole heart on fire. Okay, the second poem is a prose poem called Confessions. And I think the only thing I'll say about that is I reference an American pop singer named Chappell Rowan in here, and she is wild, often performs in drag, and when she performs, I hear freedom. And so that she kind of comes into this poem. And so if you've never heard of her, I thought I would mention that. Okay, this is called Confessions. People show you who they are. I love too much, I say too much. My greatest fear is distance. When I was 8, I hid under a kitchen table on Long Island, a black olive perched on each of my fingers. I watched steam from the oven gather on windows, the women around me finishing preparations for Christmas dinner, my grandmother's hands cradling a bowl of sweet and sour eggplant. For years, the first thing I would do when arriving at work was turn all the ovens on, as if I could recreate the sensation. But really, I put food on a table for love. I'm sitting in the grocery store parking lot because we're out of dish soap. I dream about never saying another word. Then I tell myself, no, why are we alive? The young catalpa with its heart leaves. Does the tree know? The dog tilts his head to see the leaf, the ear, the moon. I count people I trust on one hand, so I watch him watch the tree. Now all I see are two blue tears colliding. I carry this constellation on the inside, and it hums with sound from before I knew loneliness happens at close range. Like a synth with enough pulse waves to lift off the ground in search of another planet, another chance. I want to write a poem the way Chappell Roan sings about dancing in West Hollywood. When the chorus comes, I am a well by the sea, high tide filling a fierce heart, the part of me I love. There is a part of me I love. I hear the unbroken river moving, rushing over every stone, a mother for every small thing. This is when I feel it, a lantern lit and in my hand, a readiness for this life. Show me the quiver on your back. I'll choose the sharpest one, taste the poison like the wine we buy for birthdays. I learned this one morning walking out the front door. Silent and still, a desert cottontail waits behind the tire of my car. 3 little ones across the drive, safe in the boughs of Chamiza. Even with the coyote near, her eyes are open. What would happen if we loved each other like this? What would happen out there? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary Ann. Her manuscript should have won. Thanks for laughing, Peter. It should have won. I tell you, if I had anything to do with it, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Well, when you're a poet and you give a reading by yourself, you usually say, this is the 2-poem warning. Well, now we have the 2-poet warning. 2-poet warning. Our next poet is Sharon Aronshorst. She lives in the woods along Lake Michigan and also in Longboat Key in Florida. Sharon's a retired pastor. She loves playing tennis, just like Mary Ann. She loves reading, walking in the woods, hiking. She wears a paperclip, a small act of resistance to remind herself and to show others that she values her connection to all people. At the close of each year, Sharon publishes a chapbook of her own poems for her family and her close friends. This year will mark the 15th straight year that she's created such a collection. Here's Sharon Aronshorst.
Thank you, Jack. Here's my paperclip. I want to join with everyone else in deep gratitude and thanks for Jack and Julie. And I know if I weren't a part of Landscapes at this point in time, I probably wouldn't be writing. So I dearly, dearly, dearly love and appreciate each and every one of you. I have two poems today as well. And as I read over them today, I realized each one of them developed from a question. The first poem, a question that a person asked on the beach as I walked on the beach, Club Longboat. In a smooth southern lilt, he asked with a smile, "Spring breakers?" We'd laugh, we with our wrinkled faces slathered in sunscreen under visor and cap. Thin gray hair ruffling in the Gulf breeze, my husband wearing a knee sleeve, and I in gray baggy sweats. But decades disappear. I remember college spring break with my high school honey, exploring Harvard and Boston, dining on lobster and crab cakes, tasting the sickening sweetness of rum and coke on a party boat, feeling again the bump of bodies dancing to the wail of the animals. I'm chattering again with my sorority sisters on a beach in Fort Lauderdale. We're hot in new two-piece bathing suits, mine yellow with pink and blue flowers, our burning bodies slick with baby oil and copper tone. We're humming Where the Boys Are, while eyeing eager frats tossing frisbees and footballs. Later, all of us cramming into a hotel room with cheap beer and pizza, dancing on beds, long hair whipping to music blaring from a transistor radio. I see Atlanta during the spring break of '69, the colors of dogwood, azaleas, rhododendrons blazing against the multi-hues of green spring greens, bees buzzing in the gardenia-scented air, joggers passing us. I walked then, as I do now, beside the man I would marry that June. Today, after passing our playful inquirer, we stroll down the beach together, a remembered lightness in our steps, my forefinger curled in his pinky. The second poem is a question that I have asked myself, what is enough, particularly in this time of chaotic political unrest and we don't know what's happening and trying to find a place to be grounded. What is enough? What is enough? It's almost enough to see the rugged mountains reflected in the water, the grizzly bear pawing the rocky beach for clams, the black bear cubs peeking out from behind solemnberry bushes. It's almost enough to watch the orca whale's fin cut the sea, the humpback's tail arch above the splash, the bald eagle soar with a fish in its beak, the salmon jumping in a bay. It's almost enough to spot the white-crested puffin in the cleft of a cliff, to glass the killiwakes and meres. It's almost enough to observe the harbor seals resting on icebergs, the otter flowing on her back, holding her pup, the blue ice of the glacier. I want it to be enough to carry this wild beauty home, to embrace awe, and to live with open-hearted gratitude. Yet, day to day, human cruelty, violence, and the never-enoughness of greed risk numbing me into a glacier of blue hopelessness. But perhaps remembering the wilderness will be enough to keep my heart open. Perhaps coming home to the strength of the oaks, the shelter of beach, the hum of cicadas, the chirp of a hummingbird seeking sweet nectar will keep me connected to beauty, to hope. Perhaps writing this poem is enough for today.
That poem. Thank you, Sharon. Well, I guess steal from Sharon, I hope this evening has been more than enough. We'll finish tonight on the 12th day of Christmas. Our 12th poet is Ruth Zwald. Ruth is a retired social worker and minister, and she makes her home now on a farm with huge gardens. And with her partner, Mary, she raises sheep and chickens. A couple of years ago, Ruth left for Peru and went into the mountains and studied with the shamans. She would call what she does for others soul work. We call it the work of the shamans, but she won't take that title, even though she spent all that time with them. During the year, Ruth holds workshops in various shaman practices. In 2024, her collection, Bones and Breath, was the winner of the Michigan Writers Cooperative Press Chapbook Contest. And boy, was she surprised. That was a great joy. So to finish our evening, here's Ruth Swald.
Thanks, Jack, and thanks to all my fellow writers. It's just such a joy to hear you read tonight also. One of the things I love about being part of a group of writers is that what they're working on inspires me. So the first poem I want to read for you really comes out of a number of people who are wrestling with how do we respond in this time? How do we be all we're called to be? So I created a poem with 4 new saints to guide us into a different kind of age. So it's called Saints for a New Age. Number 1 is Our Lady of the Tiny Things. Is that you I caught a glimpse of behind the bluebells, bending sweetly and blessing to the earth? Is that your whisper of devotion to softly sown spinach seeds? Your melody that sings to the kiss before sleep? It is you, the one who reminds me that the smallest action towards the deeper healing has the exquisite taste of light. Saint number 2, Our Lady of the River's Bend. Your effigy seated at the water's edge, your feet wet, your fingers trail in the stream, a look of awe in your gentle eyes. I slide into the water, sit at your feet, imploring as I do to teach me how to be river, how to bend like kindness bends. Saint number 3, Our Lady of the Western Sky. Your praises we sing with the setting sun as we each meet this necessary ending, be it a day or a relationship or a hope or a life spreading out in the colors. Your praises we sing as we open our tired thoughts, letting go into the twilight. Your praises we sing in faith that the dark harbors another fragile beginning. Saint number 4, Our Lady of the Night Sky. God and I have had our ups and downs, our into the night conversations, sipping herbal tea by candlelight. At some point, God says, just go out, look up. And then your brilliant face fills my weary vision with patterns and time woven into starlight, marking the way to find the path home to the heart. The second poem is a poem I wrote for the winter solstice, which is just a little over a week away. In that indigenous tradition, we're honoring as the days get shorter and shorter till we're at that point where the light returns and we can reach into the light in a new way. So this is a pantoum, which is a form of poetry where lines repeat, which is in the winter, I find I do a lot of that kind of reflecting back and forth. So a winter solstice pantoum. Sometimes it's like an ache, this longing for a burst of new life. To ease my soul and find respite from the wonderings, I breathe quietly. For a burst of new life to ease my soul, stained and strained and oh so weary, I breathe quietly when hope flickers like a candle uncertain. Stained and strained and oh so weary, the aroma of good coffee is often enough when hope flickers like a candle uncertain in the windowsill of winter. The aroma of good coffee is often enough when shared with a friend. Laughter dances in the windowsill of winter. My age is visible in the lines around my eyes. When shared with a friend, laughter dances in the face of my fears. My age is visible in the lines around my eyes to tell the stories of all I hold dear. In the face of my fears, sometimes it's like an ache, this longing to tell the stories of all I hold dear and find respite from the wonderings.
Thank you, Ruth.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. If we've gone and gone and gone and gone, if you want to unmute, maybe have a question or you have something you want to say, something on your mind or whatever. They used to say if you have any questions, but I often think it's, do I have any reactions that I'd like to offer? So if so be it, we'll take a few minutes just to see if that's the case, and just I'll watch the screen. We have two screens though, but that's all right. Anybody? Just shoot your hand up. There's a hand on there.
I'd just like to say that it was a wonderful evening, and I want to congratulate all the readers and thank them. It was really, really nice.
Thank you, Christine. I'm sure everybody appreciates that. Anybody on the others? Let me check the other screen.
I have to say, you are all so inspiring to me. Thank you so much. I loved listening to you. I always do. Thank you, so many of you as guests and participants here. You're all a huge part of the writing because it has to have you involved as well. That's where all the meaning comes from.
Hanging in there too.
I have one.
Yeah, Scott.
I just want to say thank you to everyone, and listening to what you had thought about and experienced to write about, it's kind of inspirational to me. I quite it helped me really reflect on my life a little bit because I've had a lot of really nice and memorable experiences that I've never written about. So,
well, that's wonderful to hear. I think all of us hope for that to be the main thing rather than drawing attention to ourselves, letting the artwork draw your attention to whatever it is.
Indeed.
It's good for the heart.
Love you, Scott.
So
thanks for having me.
Anybody else?
I just want to say thank you so much, everybody. I'm Laura Donnelly. Your poems let us into so many worlds, which with such like generosity and openness. So just thank you for that. And also, you should all like narrate audiobooks because you're the best readers. I could just listen and listen and listen. It was just a really lovely evening. So thanks everybody, and thanks Jack and Julie.
Thank you, Laura. And that's so true. They can read. There's a lot of writers who just, it's the musical instrument you have to bring to the poem. You're reading your music, and boy, can they do it. Ooh, I sound like grandpa up here being proud or something, but you know, it's so, thank you, Laura. And that's a wonderful description. All those different worlds. That's fascinating, and it eliminates so much. My poem about the cat was better than your poem about the cat. It just eliminates that because they've all reached this place where there's no worry about their own world being something to explore, care about. Anybody?
Jack, I just want to say that I appreciate the invitation to join tonight. And I've met you through George Wiley's wonderful group. And it's just such a wonderful thing. One of the wonderful things about COVID is it opened up the world to me. Yeah. And I've met poets from not only the United States, but from internationally, and have shared work with people that I've never met in person, but that I know. Yeah. And it's just wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful that we have an opportunity to find each other and to build relationships and community, and just see how close we are to each other. We're only a few connections away from each other in the poetry world.
That's right, Roger. And we've needed to make those break down those barriers. Yep. Thanks, Roger.
I wanted to thank you for the humor that I heard today. I didn't know how fascinating, although I believed it, that Heinz pickles and cucumbers could be such a fantastic thing to talk about. And I've been eating citron for the last week, probably making myself sick. So the idea of talking about fruitcakes in a positive mode was also amazingly delightful. Two of us, besides myself, joined today from one time period that interacted with you, Jack, Peter and Carol. And so we hadn't talked to one another. Well, I talked to Carol, but I hadn't talked to Peter in a long time. So thank you also for bringing us together. I have to confess, I'm not a poet, but how wonderful. Thank you. I'm appreciative here. So thank you.
Well, I was saying I'm not a poet leads me to think one of the big influences for me was working under William Stafford, who would always say 1 out of 10 of my poems is effective, but all 10 were worth writing.
Ah, yeah.
Something that happens when you do it. There's a world to it. I won't elaborate. Shut up.
No, thank you.
But it's really true, and it keeps so many people. When you were little, you wrote poems. I know that. So let's just write them and not worry about if they're any good. See what happens when you write.
I'm inspired. Thank you.
Betsy has her hand up.
Betsy has her hand up.
We just want to say
That's
thank you. We had a wonderful evening. Thank you to all of you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Night, night, and safe holidays, and so much gratitude for you hanging in there this whole time. I'm man, and wonderful to see everybody except Peter. I'm not so sure that was a good idea. Oh man.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Good
being
night.
here.
Thank you very much. Very good. Good night. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Did you lose half the people or a third of the people or?
Thank you so much for being here, all of you.
So great being with you guys. Love you guys.
You too. So
Ditto,
wonderful.
ditto.
Great.
Thank
So great.
you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Yes,
Wonderful
yes.
you. Thank you.
Okay, night, night.
Night. Just gotta find the